At 2:13 a.m., a phone rang in the city of Castelmare, and a king woke up to find his kingdom built on a lie. The man who answered ruled the underworld with silence and fear, but the voice on the other end wasn't one of his men. "Your wife is in labor," the clerk said. The name she gave, Ilaria Ventresca, was a ghost he'd buried 2 years ago. He drove through the rain like a sinner chasing redemption, headlights carving through streets that remembered his sins. And when he reached the hospital, he didn't find death waiting for him. He found her, alive, broken, and surrounded by 3 newborn cries that carried his name. Before we dive deeper into Salvatore's story, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it there right now? I want to know who's still awake with me at this hour. It's 2:13 a.m. in Castelmare when the first ring splits the dark. Salvatore Romano wakes like a blade pulled from its sheath. No dream, only reflex. The voice on the line is trembling, sleep-blurred, and bureaucratic, a hospital clerk reciting a routine mistake. "Signore Romano, your wife is in labor." He almost ends the call until the name, Ilaria Ventresca, lands like shrapnel in his chest. 2 years since she vanished. 2 years of silence turned into concrete. Now her name crawls back through the wires at 2 in the morning. The apartment is silent except for the rain scratching against the balcony glass. He sits for 3 heartbeats, letting disbelief breathe, and then the storm inside him wins. Keys, jacket, gun. He moves through the corridors of his penthouse as if the floor itself might change its mind. By the time the elevator doors open to the street, the city has already begun to tremble. Castelmare doesn't sleep. It mutters. It leaks secrets through its alleys. Rain needles the cobblestones. The lamps turn the puddles into sheets of mercury. Salvatore's car howls through the waterfront roads, black engine humming with hunger. Each red light blurs into memory. Ilaria's laughter in a kitchen years ago, her hand trailing down his wrist before she left. He remembers that final look, disbelief and defiance, the night she disappeared without a trace. The closer he drives to the hospital, the tighter his chest draws. Power has always answered to his name. Fear never dared. But this is something that doesn't negotiate. His headlights slice through the rain like confession, and for the first time in years, the Mafia boss of Castelmare feels small against something he cannot command. The municipal hospital sits on the edge of the old quarter, an ancient monastery refitted in glass and steel. He storms through the front doors, the scent of antiseptics slamming into him. The night clerk looks up, startled, half asleep and wholly unprepared for the storm in his eyes. "Delivery ward," he growls. The clerk stammers, "There's no Romano on the registry." Salvatore leans forward, voice cold enough to carve marble. "Check again." But the computer blinks its refusal, lines of text flickering like static. Then it happens. A sound faint but absolute. A cry, high, raw, alive. The cry of a newborn cuts through the hum of machines, through the bureaucracy, through the armor he's worn for years. Every instinct tells him to move. He doesn't ask permission. He follows the sound down a corridor that smells of bleach and blood. His shoes leave a trail of water on the polished floor. A nurse catches sight of him, eyes wide with the recognition that danger has walked into a sacred space. "Sir, you can't be in here." He keeps walking. Doors swing open beneath his palms. Light spills across him in harsh bands. The room beyond is chaos frozen in amber. Monitors beep. White coats blur. And at the center, her, Ilaria Ventresca. Pale as porcelain, hair plastered to her temples, blood painting the curve of her wrist. The sight hits him harder than any bullet he's ever dodged. He hasn't seen her in 2 years. Yet her face is branded into him so deeply that memory feels like prophecy. Her breathing comes in shallow tides. Beside her, 3 incubators glow under sterile lamps. Tiny bodies cocooned in glass, machines whispering their fragile rhythms. 3. He steps closer. The nurse turns, startled but steady, holding a clipboard like a shield. "The father's name," she murmurs, as if saying it might calm the room, "is listed as Salvatore Romano." For a heartbeat, time dissolves. He stares at the incubators, the impossible repetition of his own reflection in their glass. Each tiny hand flickers like a promise he never made. Behind him, someone mutters instructions, but he hears nothing. The air is too heavy, the moment too loud. He takes another step. Her eyelids flutter. For a moment he thinks she's dreaming, that this is a punishment invented by sleeplessness. Then her eyes open, gray and fevered, dragging him into the same gravity that once ruined him. Her lips part. A sound trembles through them. "Why?" she whispers. One word, a question, a curse, and a prayer, all at once. It pierces him deeper than any confession could. He's built an empire out of fear and loyalty. But in that instant, standing in the sterile light of a hospital delivery room, Salvatore Romano realizes there is still one thing he cannot control: her. And as her pulse stutters on the monitor, the alarms begin to wail. Doctors rush in, shouting for more blood. He tries to move toward her, but a nurse pushes him back, shouting for space. He stands frozen, drenched in rainwater and disbelief, watching the woman who vanished from his life bleed into it again. The beeping flattens into a long, merciless tone. Ilaria's hand slips from the sheets. Her gaze locks on his one last time, and she breathes his name, not as a plea, but as a verdict. Then the monitors go silent. The sound of the monitor pulses in his head long after the room quiets. Beep, beep, a rhythm that feels more like judgment than life. Salvatore stands at the edge of the light, a silhouette carved from disbelief. For a man who commands men with a glance, who can erase names with a nod, the word helpless has never belonged to him. Until now. Her voice cuts through the noise, a fragile sound that barely knows it's alive. "You weren't supposed to see this." Each word trembles like glass under strain. He hears it not as rejection, but as confession. The shame in her tone is sharper than any accusation. He wants to touch her. He wants to reach across the sterile divide to convince himself she's real. But between them stands everything they destroyed: his empire, her disappearance, and the 2 years of silence that calcified into resentment. The space between them feels like barbed wire. Every breath she takes is a reminder that he wasn't meant to find her like this. Not bleeding, not broken, not holding proof of their old sin multiplied by 3. Dr. Sophia Marchetti moves like precision in heels. "Step back if you want her alive," she snaps, her tone slicing through the tension. Salvatore obeys. It's the first order he's followed in years. He retreats a single step, but the gesture feels like surrender. The room smells of blood and metal and antiseptic. Machines hum their indifferent lullaby. He watches as the doctor presses gauze against the wound that once carried his children. He thinks about the irony, how the man who dictates life and death on Castelmare streets now stands mute in a room where he can command nothing. He looks at Ilaria. Her face is pale, luminous in the fluorescent light, her hair a dark halo, stuck to damp temples. She turns her head from him, as though she can still choose what world to exist in. Her tears cut trails down her skin, each one a quiet accusation. The sight fractures something deep inside him, something that used to be stone. He built an empire to never feel this again. He built it for her, because of her, and yet she escaped him, running into a world where even his reach couldn't find her. Until tonight, a wrong call, a clerical mistake, fate, disguised as bureaucracy, ripped open the grave of their past. He should be angry, he should be raging, but all he feels is fear. Not for his name or his empire or his bloodline, for her. because her skin looks too thin for this world and her pulse sounds too soft to argue with death. He remembers the night she left, the slammed door, the echo of her footsteps fading down marble halls. He remembers what she said before vanishing. "If I stay, something in us dies." He thought she meant love. Now he understands she meant herself. A soft cry pierces the silence. It's not hers. It's smaller, wilder. The third infant, restless and impatient, wailing as if the world already owes it something. The cry pulls every head in the room, but only one man freezes entirely: Salvatore. That sound, fierce, untamed, feels like an echo of him. Dr. Marchetti moves with a controlled grace, lifting the child from the cradle of plastic and wires. The baby's skin is flushed, angry, alive. "Two will need more care," she says, voice professional, clipped, unreadable. Her eyes flicker to Salvatore, a quick, dangerous glance that reads the air between him and Ilaria. "But this one—" She pauses, turning the newborn slightly toward the light. "This one already has his eyes." The words fall into the room like a verdict. Ilaria shudders. Salvatore's breath shortens, an invisible blade twisting between his ribs. He's staring at the tiny face, at the mirrored gray that once looked back at him from Ilaria's pillow years ago. It's uncanny, haunting. A ghost wearing the mask of a future he didn't know existed. Ilaria's arms shake as the doctor places the baby into them. She cradles the child like she's holding both miracle and punishment. Her lips tremble. She doesn't look at him. For the first time since he walked in, she seems smaller than he remembers, fragile, human, untouchable in a way that wounds him. The nurse whispers something about transfusions. Machines click. The world shrinks to breathing and regret. Salvatore takes a step forward before he can stop himself. His hand hovers in the air, useless, trembling. He's touched blood-stained ledgers, cold triggers, and the faces of the dying, but never something this breakable. He swallows the heat in his throat, his voice barely surviving the distance. "Then whose eyes," he whispers, "do the others have?" The question drops like a confession no one was ready to hear. Ilaria flinches as though struck. Her gaze finally meets his, a hurricane of exhaustion, defiance, and fear. Behind her, the machines hum on, indifferent witnesses to a truth neither of them can name yet. Dr. Marchetti's hand stills. The nurse stops writing, and for a heartbeat, the room forgets how to breathe. Outside, thunder rolls across Castelmaire's rooftops. Rain lashes the windows. The sound feels like the city itself is holding its breath, waiting for what happens next. Ilaria presses her lips to the baby's forehead, whispering something no one else can hear. When she looks up, there's a flicker of something like guilt in her eyes. Guilt. Or knowledge. Her mouth opens, but before she can speak, the lights flicker. Somewhere down the hall, a door slams. Footsteps echo in a rhythm that sounds too deliberate, too heavy to belong in a hospital at this hour. Salvatore's instincts return like a storm snapping into focus. His hand moves toward the gun holster under his coat. The doctor looks up, startled. The hum of machines deepens, becomes a pulse in the walls. He turns toward the door, every muscle locked, eyes narrowing, and just before he reaches for the handle, a single bullet hole blooms through the glass panel. The room erupts in screams as he shouts Ilaria's name. But when he spins back toward her bed, she and the baby are gone. The hospital never truly sleeps. Its hallways hum with the restless ghosts of machines and the echo of footsteps that come and go like tides. In one small, sterile room, 3 fragile lives draw breath for the first time. Soft, uneven, stubborn. Their sounds fill the air like prayers whispered through broken glass. Salvatore Romano stands at the window, watching dawn leak into the city, its light a faint, merciless thing. He should be downstairs, giving orders, restoring the illusion of control. Instead, he watches condensation bloom across the glass, while the world rearranges itself behind him. Each small inhale from those incubators is an argument against the life he built, a life of blood, of balance sheets, signed in fear. He feels a cold weight in his chest, the kind that makes breathing taste like guilt. He hasn't left the corridor since the shooting. No one saw who fired. The bullet shattered glass, scattered screams, and left confusion in its wake. Security swarmed. Doctors shouted, and when the smoke cleared, Ilaria and one nurse had vanished from the room. 2 of the infants remained. One, the smallest, disappeared with her. Hours later, hospital guards found her again in the lower ward, sedated, half-conscious, clutching the baby as if the world would end if she let go. Now she sleeps, her body bandaged, her lips still parted around a word she never finished saying. Her face in the weak morning light is both familiar and foreign, like a photograph found after a war. He studies her with a reverence that feels like punishment. A nurse appears in the doorway, small and uncertain, clutching a clipboard. "Signore Romano," she murmurs. She used a false name when she was admitted. He turns, slow, deliberate. What name? Lucia Vale. The syllables hit him like a slap. Vale. The surname of a rival syndicate that had vanished 3 years ago. He frowns. Someone powerful helped her disappear. Someone with reach. He steps closer to the incubators, to the rhythm of life inside glass cages. Tiny fists twitch. Eyes flutter beneath translucent lids. He's seen grown men die with less fight than these small creatures show just by breathing. One of them kicks against the air, a gesture so defiant it almost draws a smile from him. Almost. He doesn't smile anymore. When Ilaria wakes, it's not gentle. Her first sound is a gasp, sharp and frightened, as though she's resurfacing from deep water. The nurse rushes to calm her, but she waves her off, scanning the room until her eyes lock on him. Her voice trembles. "They told me you were dead." The words come out like an accusation. He should answer, should explain how death has courted him but never claimed him, but he only stares. "Who told you that?" he finally asks. Her eyes flick toward the window, toward the light she doesn't seem to trust. "It doesn't matter. It saved you." He steps closer, the air between them charged. "Saved me from what?" Her throat tightens. "From yourself." It's a cruel line, but he takes it like medicine. He's earned worse. He leaves her side before he says something he can't take back. In the hallway, he calls Matteo Rinaldi, his right hand, his brother in everything but blood. The phone rings once before Matteo answers, his voice rough with exhaustion. "Boss? Hospital. Now." He hangs up before Matteo can ask questions. Minutes later, Matteo's footsteps echo down the corridor. He's changed since the last time Salvatore looked at him, tension carved deep into his features, eyes rimmed in sleeplessness. He's loyal, but loyalty is a word Salvatore has learned to doubt. "Tell me," Salvatore says, "did you know she was alive?" Matteo doesn't speak. His silence is thick, almost deliberate. Salvatore watches his face, every flicker, every twitch. When Matteo finally meets his gaze, it's only for a heartbeat. Then he looks away. "Answer me." "I thought," Matteo swallows, "I thought she was gone for good. That's what they said." "They?" "People who don't live long if they talk." Salvatore steps forward, crowding the distance between them until there's no air left. "Then make me believe you." Before Matteo can reply, a nurse hurries toward them, eyes down, an envelope trembling in her hands. "Signore Romano," she says, voice shaking. "This was left at the front desk. It's addressed to you." Salvatore takes it, the weight of it small but unbearable. No markings, no seal, just his name in rushed handwriting. He opens it. Inside, an official-looking form folded twice. He smooths it open, eyes scanning the text. A police intake document from 2 years ago. Name, Ilaria Ventresca. Aliases, Lucia Vale. Status, relocated witness. Emergency contact, Salvatore Romano. The paper trembles in his hands. He reads the line again, slower this time, as though meaning will shift under pressure. He doesn't understand. She vanished to keep him away, and yet his name followed her into her new life. Everywhere she ran, she carried the ghost of him like a shadow she couldn't burn. Ilaria appears in the doorway, pale and trembling. She must have forced herself from bed. The IV still trails from her wrist. Her voice cracks when she sees the paper. "I couldn't erase you," she says. Tears spill down her face, raw and helpless. "I tried. I really tried. They said I had to start over, that I couldn't keep anything, but—" She presses her palm against her chest. "You were still here." For the first time, Salvatore feels something close to vertigo. The floor beneath him shifts with the weight of everything he thought he knew. He spent years building a fortress of certainty. Now it feels like a house of smoke. He looks at Matteo, then back at Ilaria. Too many lies. Too many ghosts. He turns the document over. On the back, faint and smudged with fingerprints, there's more writing, handwritten, rushed, but unmistakable. He recognizes the tilt of the letters, the impatience in the pen strokes. It's her handwriting. He reads aloud, barely breathing the words, "If found, tell him I left to keep him alive." The silence that follows is absolute. No one moves. Even the machines seem to hold their breath. Salvatore looks at Ilaria, her tears catching the morning light like tiny shards of glass. For years, he believed she left out of hate, out of defiance. Now he realizes she left out of love, and maybe that's worse. His throat tightens. Before he can speak, before he can decide what to do with this truth, a sound echoes down the hall. A dull, metallic clang, heavy boots on tile. Matteo's hand goes to his coat. Salvatore freezes. The nurse glances over her shoulder, uneasy. Is that? The lights flicker. Another clang, closer this time. Salvatore turns, and through the frosted glass of the hallway door, a silhouette moves, slow, deliberate, familiar. The door swings open, and the man standing there is someone Salvatore buried 3 years ago, alive, armed, and smiling. The night before everything ended, the air over Castelmare reeked of salt and metal. The docks glowed faintly under warehouse lights, long shadows bending over crates stamped with red crosses. To the world, they carried medical supplies for foreign relief. To Salvatore Romano, they carried leverage, his empire's next breath. Ilaria stood between those crates, rain soaking her coat, her hair clinging to her cheeks. She wasn't supposed to be here, she wasn't supposed to know, but she had always known too much. "Tell me it isn't true," she said. Her voice trembled, not with fear, but fury. "Tell me these aren't the same shipments the Interpol flagged last month." Salvatore didn't flinch. He had no luxury for guilt. "It's business," he said, slow, measured. She stepped closer, close enough to smell the smoke on his jacket, the scent that had followed her to bed for years. "Business," she hissed. "You're arming a civil war under the name of a children's hospital." He said nothing. Silence was his weapon. The rain struck harder. What drumming against metal and bone. She realized then what scared her most wasn't his crime. It was how calm he was about it. "Ilaria," he said quietly, "you don't understand what's at stake." "I understand enough," she fired back, "and I won't be part of it." Her hand brushed the cross on one of the crates. "This is the blood you build your throne on." Something flickered behind his eyes. Pride, pain, possession. "Walk away then," he said, "but don't ask me to crawl with you." The words landed between them like bullets. She took a breath, memorizing his face. Sharp lines, cold eyes, the man she had once thought she could save. "I'm not walking away," she said, voice trembling. "I'm running before your world burns me alive." And she did. She turned and vanished into the rain, the sound of her footsteps drowned by the sea. He let her go because he thought he could find her later. He thought power could bridge the distance. Love couldn't. He thought wrong. Now, 2 years later, Salvatore stands in the hospital corridor holding a file that reeks of betrayal, his name typed on every page, her name buried under aliases, dates, transfers, signatures, all faked with professional precision. Matteo Rinaldi stands in front of him, jaw locked, eyes hollow. The man has followed him through gunfire and blood feuds, but tonight he looks cornered. "Who did this?" Salvatore demands. His voice is low, dangerous, quiet enough to make Matteo sweat. Matteo hesitates. His silence says more than words ever could. Finally, he speaks. "She wasn't safe. You weren't either. The magistrate, he offered protection. Someone inside your circle signed off." Salvatore's stare sharpens. "Who?" Matteo's throat tightens. "You wouldn't believe me." "Try me." Matteo reaches for the file, flips to the final page. A form dated 2 years ago. Death certificate. Ilaria Ventresca. Cause listed as auto accident, unidentifiable remains. Official seal of the Castelmare Bureau of Internal Affairs. Salvatore feels his pulse turn to iron. "I buried her with my own hands," he murmurs, half to himself, half to the ghosts around him. Matteo looks at him sharply. "You buried ashes, not truth." The room hums with the weight of what's unsaid. "She didn't vanish," Matteo continues. "She was erased. Someone powerful wanted her invisible." Salvatore's knuckles whiten. "To protect her." Matteo nods. "To protect you." The idea is absurd. Nothing in his life has ever been done for his protection. He's the danger. The one others are protected from. He turns to the window, watching the rain smear the city's lights into watercolor ghosts. Who signed the order? Matteo's silence stretches. He lowers his gaze. "I can't." Salvatore grabs him by the collar, slams him against the wall, voice a low growl. "You think I won't ask twice?" Matteo's breath trembles. "It wasn't me." "Then who?" Matteo's eyes flick down to the file in Salvatore's hand. "The signature's there. You just don't want to see it." Salvatore looks. The page is damp with rain and sweat, ink blotted, smudged. But one print stands out, half a circle pressed faintly into the bottom margin. A ring impression, thick, heavy, ornate. A ring he knows, a ring he's seen his whole life on another man's hand. The family crest carved in gold, the mark of bloodline and authority. His father's ring. The file slips from his grip and hits the floor like a gunshot. Matteo doesn't speak. He doesn't have to. Every silence, every evasion from the last 2 years now screams its confession. Ilaria wasn't hidden by enemies. She was hidden by the man who made Salvatore a king. His father, the patriarch of the Romano Empire, had signed her death into existence. The rain outside grows louder, as if the city itself is holding its breath. In Salvatore's chest, something ancient and dangerous begins to stir. He kneels, picks up the file again, and runs his thumb over that faint, perfect print. The gold outline of his father's seal gleams beneath the sterile light. He doesn't blink. He doesn't breathe. He just whispers, almost reverent, almost deadly, "You." The hallway light flickers once, then steadies. Salvatore lifts his gaze toward the hospital window, where rain streaks blur his reflection. Behind him, somewhere deep in the shadows, a voice, a familiar baritone, aged and cold, says quietly, "Some debts aren't meant to be repaid, son. Only buried." Salvatore turns. The reflection in the glass isn't his. It's his father's. Cut to black. The corridor smells of disinfectant and rain. Beyond the glass, Castelmare's skyline bleeds light into the fog, a jagged promise of ruin. Inside, under the sterile glow of fluorescent lamps, 2 people who once believed they were immortal stand facing the weight of everything they've done. Ilaria's voice cuts through the hum of machines, quiet, steady, lethal. "Your empire tried to save itself by killing me." Salvatore doesn't move. He doesn't blink. Her words land with surgical precision, carving open the silence between them. He wants to deny it, wants to say she's wrong. But his father's ring mark is still seared into his memory, proof pressed in ink and betrayal. The truth isn't just something he's discovered, it's something he's inherited. His throat works, but no words come. Ilaria takes a step closer. The air between them hums with heat and history. "You knew," she whispers. "Even if you didn't say it, you felt it. You always feel when blood's being spilled in your name." He should walk away. He should let her hate him, but he can't. "I never gave the order," he says finally, voice rough as gravel. Her eyes shine, not with softness, but with fury restrained. "Maybe not, but your silence signed it for you." Something twists in his chest, anger, shame, longing. All of it burns the same. She turns away, trembling, arms wrapped around herself as though holding her pieces together. Through the window reflection, he sees her tears streaking down, mirrored by the rain. They've been apart 2 years, but this silence feels older, centuries pressed into minutes. Then, gunfire. The sound cleaves the air like thunder, 3 sharp cracks, echoing through sterile halls meant for healing, not war. Instinct replaces thought. Salvatore moves before his mind catches up. He grabs Ilaria's arm, pulls her close, his body shielding hers. "Get down!" The second volley comes closer, one bullet shattering a fire alarm, another carving sparks from the elevator panel. The hospital erupts into chaos. Doctors shout, patients scream. Somewhere, a baby cries. The sound so piercing, so fragile, it's almost sacred. Salvatore's world collapses into pure reflex. He sweeps Ilaria and the small rolling bassinets into the stairwell, metal door slamming shut behind them. His pulse thunders in his ears. Every sound outside feels amplified. Boots, shouting the metallic clatter of death on approach. Ilaria trembles, clutching one of the babies to her chest. Salvatore crouches in front of her, gun drawn, jaw clenched so tight the vein in his temple pulses. "Stay behind me," he orders. "Who are they?" she whispers. He doesn't answer, because he already knows. No rival gang would be reckless enough to hit a hospital. No outsider would breach a ward crawling with his guards. This isn't an attack. It's an inside message. The stairwell light flickers. Shadows move. Then, footsteps. Heavy, controlled, familiar. Salvatore raises his weapon, but before he can fire, the door bursts open. A man stumbles through, clutching his stomach. Blood seeps through white scrubs, disguise over allegiance. The man crashes to the floor, dragging a wet trail behind him. Salvatore grabs him by the collar, rips open his shirt. The mark burns on the man's chest, inked and unmistakable. The Romano crest. Salvatore freezes. That crest has never been worn outside his command, never branded on anyone who hadn't sworn an oath to him. His empire has turned inward. The family is devouring itself. He presses a hand against the gunman's wound. "Who sent you?" The man gurgles, blood bubbling between his lips. Salvatore tightens his grip. "Who gave the order?" The dying man's eyes flutter. His voice cracks, dry as dust. "Matteo." The world stops. Salvatore doesn't breathe for a second. He just stares. His most trusted man, his brother in arms, his second soul, named by a traitor's last breath. Ilaria whispers behind him, voice trembling. No, not him. He looks back at her. Her eyes are wide, terrified, not for herself, but for what she knows comes next, because Salvatore doesn't forgive betrayal. He buries it. He presses the gunman's neck again, desperate for another word, another name, another chance for this not to be true. But the man exhales once more, eyes rolling back into nothing. Silence. Outside the stairwell, sirens wail. The building feels alive with panic. Salvatore wipes the blood from his hands, every motion slow and deliberate. "Matteo," he murmurs again, as if testing the taste of the word. It doesn't sound like betrayal. It sounds like heartbreak. He holsters the gun and stands. For a moment, his body sways. The weight of everything presses down. His father's shadow, Ilaria's truth, Mateo's name. He looks at her. His wife, the woman he once ruled the world for. The mother of the children fighting for breath a few feet away. There's pain in his eyes. Regret. But under it all, something darker stirs. Resolve. Ilaria reaches for his sleeve, voice cracking. Please don't do what I think you're about to do. He doesn't answer. He doesn't have to. The silence between them says everything. He's already made his choice. He steps toward the door, gun in hand. But then, a sharp red glow cuts through the dim stairwell. Ilaria gasps. Salvatore freezes. A laser sight. One thin beam of red light slides across the floor, climbing the wall, gliding past him, until it lands on the incubators. 3 small dots, 3 fragile targets. Salvatore's blood runs cold. He lunges, throwing himself over the bassinets just as the first bullet cracks through the window glass, spraying shards into the air. The world explodes into chaos. Ilaria screams, nurses shout from the hall, alarms blare, and in the broken shimmer of shattered glass, Salvatore sees movement on the roof across the street. A sniper, calm and deliberate, shifting aim. He fires back, 2 shots blind into the night. The sniper ducks. Silence follows. But the red beam remains, flickering like a heartbeat. Salvatore crouches, panting, staring at the tiny lives he almost lost before he even got to know them. Ilaria crawls to his side, tears streaking her face. They're targeting the babies. Why? He grips the floor, voice low, dark, breaking. Because someone wants to erase every trace of me. The hallway beyond the door groans. Boots, more gunfire, chaos spreading. Salvatore lifts his head, eyes burning like coals. He knows what comes next. This isn't about loyalty anymore. This is war. The stairwell door rattles. Bang, bang, bang. A voice shouts from the other side, muffled but clear. "Boss, it's Matteo. We need to talk." Salvatore's hand tightens around his gun. He glances at Ilaria, then at the crimson glow still trembling on the incubator glass. The beam shifts, slides up, and lands square on Matteo's shadow through the frosted window. The stairwell door shudders again, once, twice. Then a voice he's known all his life cuts through the chaos. "Salvatore, it's me." The sound of Matteo Rinaldi saying his name has always meant safety. Until now. Salvatore lowers his weapon just enough to breathe, but his heartbeat refuses to slow. He gestures to Ilaria to stay quiet, her hand trembling around the bundled child. He moves closer to the door, his shoes silent on the blood-speckled tile. "Put down the gun," Matteo says softly. "Let me explain." "Open it," Ilaria whispers. But Salvatore shakes his head. His instincts are older than trust. He presses his ear to the metal. Behind it, he hears the shallow breathing of men. 3, maybe 4. Guards. Assassins. His empire's ghosts now wear the same uniforms. He steps back and kicks the door open. It slams against the wall with a crack. Matteo stands there, hands raised, coat torn, eyes wide and hollow. 2 of his men hover behind him, guns slung but not drawn. "Stand down," Salvatore orders. They obey, lowering their weapons. The air still hums like a wound. Matteo takes 1 step inside. "I didn't order the hit," he says. "I swear on my mother's grave." Salvatore studies him. The man's face looks older, drawn thin by sleepless nights. There's blood on his sleeve, not his. "Then explain," Salvatore growls, "because a man just died with your name in his mouth." Matteo's jaw works, but no words come. Ilaria clutches the babies tighter, her knuckles pale. The distant wail of alarms fills the silence like a slow dirge. Finally, Matteo speaks. "You think I'd betray you?" Salvatore cuts him off. "I don't think, I confirm." Matteo's eyes flash with pain. "You taught me loyalty." And you repaid it with bullets in my children's ward. He points the gun at Matteo's chest. Last chance. Tell me who you're working for. Matteo breathes in sharply, defiant. For you. The words hang there, absurd and heavy. For me. I made the deal to keep her alive. His eyes flick to Ilaria. They wanted leverage on you. You were untouchable, Salvatore, but she wasn't. I had to give them something. Salvatore's finger tightens on the trigger. What did you give? Matteo lowers his gaze. The shipments, the ports, a fraction of the weapons cache, enough to make it believable. Believable? Salvatore repeats, voice low, dangerous. You sold pieces of my empire? To save her, Matteo shouts. To save you both. The words echo through the stairwell, raw and desperate. Ilaria stares at him, the weight of his confession breaking something fragile inside her. You knew, she whispers. All this time? You knew where I was? Matteo nods, shame flickering across his face. I kept it buried. I made them think you were dead. I thought if I could stall them long enough, they'd move on. Salvatore steps closer. His eyes are pure winter. Who is they, Matteo? The other man hesitates, then answers. Cassian Vela, the syndicate from Palermo. He wanted your empire, your crown, and your heirs. Salvatore's stomach knots. And you led him to my doorstep. I led him away, Matteo snaps. Every time he sent men, I redirected them. I gave them scraps, decoys, names that would never trace back. Until tonight, Ilaria murmurs. Matteo flinches. I didn't give the order, I swear. Someone else in the hierarchy, someone above even Cassian, found the truth. They knew she was alive. They knew about the babies. Salvatore studies him for a long moment, searching for deceit. He finds none, but trust has already rotted inside him. Then why now? He asks. Because the lie ran out of time, Matteo says quietly. You were never supposed to answer that phone. The world narrows to a point. Salvatore lowers the gun slightly, just enough for air to move again. I should kill you, he says softly, for the audacity of believing you could protect what's mine. Matteo's eyes harden. You're welcome to try. Their standoff stretches. Two men carved from the same loyalty, now turned weapons against each other. Ilaria's breath hitches as the babies stir. A loud crash echoes from the upper floors, gunfire followed by screams. Salvatore's men burst through the stairwell door, weapons drawn. Boss, shooters breach the west wing. They're hunting something, someone. Salvatore doesn't need to ask who. His children. He shoves Matteo aside, barking orders. Get Ilaria out, north exit, no hesitation. Matteo grabs his arm. You'll be outnumbered. Then they'll die tired, Salvatore snarls. He turns to Ilaria, touches her cheek briefly, a flicker of tenderness in the storm. Her eyes glisten, confusion and terror intertwined. Don't do this alone, she whispers. He doesn't answer. He never does. The team moves fast, cutting through the hospital corridors like shadows. Bodies litter the floor, nurses cowering, alarms wailing, smoke creeping from a ruptured oxygen line. The smell of burnt rubber and antiseptic twists the air into something chemical and cruel. At the junction ahead, gunfire erupts again. Matteo pulls Ilaria down behind a supply cart, returning fire. Salvatore strides through it like he's made of stone, each step calculated, lethal. The assailants wear plain clothes, but the coordination betrays training. Two flank the hallway, one crouched by the vending machine, another behind a gurney. Salvatore's men drop them with precision, silent, efficient. When the last one falls, Matteo kneels beside the body, a wallet, a card, embossed crest, Romano Holdings. Matteo's face drains of color. These were our own, he whispers. Salvatore's voice drops to a whisper colder than the night. They were never ours. They move on. Down the hall, the nursery door stands ajar, one hinge twisted by gunfire. Inside, the lights flicker red from the emergency generator. Salvatore steps in first. His reflection moves across the incubator glass like a ghost. The babies are still there, untouched, but someone else is not. A nurse lies on the floor, throat cut, eyes open. A message scrawled across the wall in blood. End what you started. Matteo curses under his breath. Cassian's calling you out, he says. Salvatore stares at the words. The blood, the trembling light. He knows this isn't Cassian's handwriting. Cassian was many things, but not poetic. This message came from deeper inside his house. He turns, his gaze finding Matteo again. You said you redirected them, he murmurs. So who redirected you? Matteo doesn't answer. For the first time, fear flickers in his eyes. Real fear, not guilt. Salvatore presses his gun to Matteo's chest. Who's above Cassian? I don't know, Matteo breathes. But they know you. They've been inside your walls longer than I have. The sound of police sirens rises outside, a reminder that dawn is creeping up on their sins. Salvatore lowers his weapon, his mind already shifting gears. He's not fighting a rival anymore. He's fighting something buried in his bloodline. Get her out, he tells Matteo again. I'll clean this up. Matteo hesitates. Salvatore, do it, he snaps. Matteo nods, grabbing Ilaria's arm, pulling her toward the back exit. Salvatore stays behind, standing amid broken glass and blood, staring at the message until the letters blur. Then, a faint sound, a click, metal against metal. He whirls, weapon raised. A figure steps from the shadows at the far end of the ward, tall, calm, dressed in a white doctor's coat, hands clean, shoes silent, but the smile, cold, familiar. Good evening, Signor Romano, the man says. Your father sends his regards. Salvatore's breath catches. He knows that voice. He trained that voice. One of his own doctors, an informant. The man reaches into his pocket, pulls out a cell phone, and presses play. A recording crackles. His father's voice, low, absolute. If the boy asks questions, remind him what loyalty costs. A sharp beep follows, the countdown of a detonator. Salvatore dives. The world goes white. The explosion rips through the nursery windows, fire and glass erupting outward like wings of ruin. As smoke fills the ward, alarms shrieking, Salvatore's vision blurs. Through the haze, he sees a single figure, Matteo, dragging Ilaria toward the exit. And just beyond them, through the shattered glass, a man in a black coat watches from the street below. The firelight catches the gold on his hand, a ring engraved with the Romano crest. Salvatore's father is alive, cut to black. Flames still crawl across the broken windows of the hospital, licking at the night like hungry ghosts. Sirens scream somewhere beyond the smoke. Salvatore pushes through the ruin, ribs aching, eardrums ringing from the blast. Every breath cuts like glass. Every step drags the weight of too many names. Matteo, Ilaria, father. He doesn't look back at the burning nursery. He can't. His men arrive minutes later. Dark suits, blood-slick boots, guns raised. They stare at the destruction with the silent horror of soldiers who've seen too much. Get the babies out, he orders, alive. His voice is hoarse, barely human. They obey. No one questions him. Outside, the courtyard is chaos. Police barricades, the smell of gasoline, the whisper of betrayal running down every corridor. The night has split open, and his name is the wound. Matteo waits near the ambulance bay, shirt burned, face blackened by soot. He's holding Ilaria's hand like it's the last thing tethering him to the world. When he sees Salvatore, relief flickers in his eyes, and then fear. Tell me it wasn't him, Matteo says quietly. Salvatore doesn't answer. His silence is confirmation enough. Ilaria looks between them, her voice raw. Who? Salvatore's eyes are steel. My father! The words hang heavy, like smoke refusing to rise. She shakes her head. That's impossible. He's dead. So was I, he replies. Matteo steps forward. Then everything we thought we knew was a lie, Salvatore cuts in. He built it. He burned it. And now he's cleaning house. He looks back at the hospital where fire trucks hiss against the flames. For a moment, he almost laughs. A broken sound swallowed by sirens. I used to think fire purifies, he says softly, but it just reveals what's left. Ilaria touches his arm. We need to leave. The police will come. He looks at her, at the faint ash streaking her hair, at the way her eyes hold fear and defiance in equal measure. She's still the only thing that can quiet the noise in his head, and that terrifies him more than the fire. They move quickly, through alleys, across back streets, until the city noise fades. Matteo leads them to an abandoned warehouse by the docks, one of the old Romano properties no one's used in years. Salt and rust hang heavy in the air. The sound of the sea presses against the silence like a pulse. Salvatore steps into the shadows and exhales. It feels like inhaling memory. This was where he built his first deal, where his father taught him that power wasn't earned, it was inherited through blood and fear. Now, that same blood has declared war. He turns to Matteo. How long have you known he was alive? Matteo flinches, looking down. I suspected, after the Palermo raids, some of his old contacts resurfaced, but I couldn't prove it. You didn't tell me, Salvatore says, voice calm and deadly. Matteo meets his eyes. Would you have listened? The silence that follows could kill a man. Ilaria breaks it. If your father's behind this, it means everything, every threat, every attack, it all leads back to you. Salvatore nods slowly. He's cleansing the family name. He wants me gone. Matteo leans against the rusted wall, his voice heavy. He built an empire of ghosts, Sal. You were the first living thing he ever created. Maybe he thinks killing you keeps the rest of it immortal. The thought lands deep, like a knife turned in the chest. Ilaria steps closer, lowering her voice. So what now? Salvatore looks at her, then at the warehouse floor, scattered with the ghosts of their past. Now? He says. We start a war. She shakes her head. No, you start it, you lose them. She nods toward the corner where the babies sleep in temporary bassinets. They've already been born into your shadow, Salvatore. Don't make them orphans too. He stares at them, 3 small, fragile miracles in the middle of his chaos. Each breath they take feels like both salvation and punishment. He crouches beside them. For the first time in years, he whispers a prayer, not for victory, for mercy. Matteo watches uneasy. We need to know his endgame. Salvatore stands. He's old. He doesn't move without reason. If he's resurfaced, it's because he found something he lost. Ilaria's gaze sharpens. What did he lose? Salvatore meets her eyes. Me. The words are quiet, but they burn. Before Matteo can respond, a phone buzzes on the metal table. Not Salvatore's, not Ilaria's. Matteo's burner. He hesitates, glances at Salvatore, then answers. A voice crackles through the line. Rinaldi, it's done. The boss says the woman and the children stay alive for now. Matteo's blood drains from his face. Who is this? The voice laughs softly. You still don't get it, do you? There's a new order. The old king's back. The line goes dead. Salvatore walks over, grabs Matteo by the collar. Who was that? Matteo stammers. One of the old Palermo handlers. He shouldn't even know this number. Salvatore's mind clicks through possibilities, each darker than the last. The phone buzzes again. This time, a text. 3 words. Come home, son. The blood in his veins turns molten. It's not just an invitation, it's a command. He crushes the phone in his fist, shards scattering across the floor. He wants me to come to him. Ilaria steps forward. Then don't. He's setting a trap. Salvatore looks at her, eyes dark as the tide. If I don't go, he'll come for you. She grips his arm. Then let him. You don't have to fight his wars anymore. He pulls away, voice low but sharp. Every war he started, I finished. That's what he made me for. Matteo slams his fist against the wall. Enough! He's playing both sides, Sal. Cassian's still out there. You think your father's acting alone? The name cuts through the air like a blade. Cassian Vela, the rival boss. The man Matteo once claimed he'd deceived. Salvatore turns slowly. Say that name again. Matteo's expression twists. Cassian. He's not dead. He's consolidating the South. He's using your father's resurrection as cover to take the ports. Ilaria's breath catches. You said Cassian was finished. Matteo's eyes dart away. He was, until he wasn't. Salvatore's hand tightens into a fist. You lied to me again. It wasn't a lie, Matteo says quickly. It was a delay. I thought I could contain it. Salvatore moves before anyone can stop him. One swift punch, hard and brutal, cracks across Matteo's jaw. He falls against the wall, spitting blood. You contain nothing, Salvatore snarls. You just prolong the inevitable. Matteo wipes his mouth, eyes burning. You want to survive this? We need Cassian alive. He's the only one who knows what your father's building. Then he dies last, Salvatore says. He turns to Ilaria, his tone softening by a fraction. Take the children. Go to the villa outside Verona. Stay hidden until I find you. She steps back, shaking her head. I'm not running again. You will if you want them to live. Her eyes glisten, but she doesn't move. And what about you? He smirks, a shadow of the man he used to be. Me, I'm going home. The room goes silent. The sea hisses outside like applause for madness. Matteo pushes himself up, wiping the blood from his chin. If you walk into his den, you won't walk out. Salvatore doesn't respond. He's already halfway to the door. Ilaria's voice breaks behind him. Salvatore, please. He pauses, just long enough to look back. For a heartbeat, the world softens. The firelight, the trembling in her voice, the babies breathing in unison. Then it's gone. He closes the door behind him, the echo sharp as a gunshot. Matteo exhales, whispering to himself. He's going to start a war he can't finish. Ilaria turns toward the bassinets, brushing tears from her face. Then we finish it for him. Before Matteo can respond, the lights flicker. The warehouse plunges into darkness. The hum of the generator dies. A faint sound follows, metal clinking against the door. Matteo draws his gun, eyes wide. Then the smell hits them. Gasoline. The doors lock from the outside. A voice drifts in through the walls, low and amused. You should have stayed gone, Dr. Ventresca. Ilaria freezes. She knows that voice. Cassian Vela. Outside the warehouse, a match flares. A single spark dances in the wind, then falls. The world ignites. Flames roar upward as Ilaria screams Matteo's name, clutching the babies to her chest. Through the smoke, she sees a silhouette watching from the pier, Cassian's grin illuminated by firelight. And behind him, a second figure steps into view, an older man, silver hair, a cane carved with the Romano crest. Her heart stops. Salvatore's father is standing beside his enemy, cut to black. The warehouse burns. Flames rise like angry saints, painting the black sky in gold and smoke. Ilaria runs, her lungs cutting with each breath, clutching one child against her chest, while Matteo shields the other two beneath his coat. Sparks fall around them like dying stars. The air tastes of ash and betrayal. Outside, gunfire echoes from the docks, short, disciplined bursts that tell her Cassian brought soldiers. Matteo leads the way through a side door, half hinged from the blast. They stumble into the night, coughing, bleeding, alive by accident. Behind them, the warehouse collapses in a shower of sparks. Ilaria turns once and sees shadows moving at the edge of the flames. Cassian's men, faceless under their masks, sweeping through the debris like carrion birds. Somewhere beyond the smoke she hears Cassian's voice, calm, amused, cruelly close. "Find the babies. Bring me the mother." Matteo shoves her forward. "Go! Go! Go!" They sprint toward the narrow maze of shipping containers, the air thick with heat and fear. Every clang of their footsteps feels like a heartbeat running out of time. They reach the docks. Salt wind collides with smoke, turning everything into a fever dream. An old fishing boat rocks against the pier, barely seaworthy. Matteo jumps aboard, hauling Ilaria after him. The engine sputters to life just as gunfire rips through the fog. Bullets tear splinters from the wooden hull. Ilaria drops to her knees, wrapping her arms around the 3 infants, whispering their names like armor. Matteo guns the throttle. The boat lurches away from the pier. Cassian stands at the edge, hands behind his back, the flames behind him turning him into something mythic and monstrous. His smile is faint, knowing. He doesn't shoot. He just watches. "Why isn't he following?" Ilaria gasps. Matteo grits his teeth. "Because he doesn't need to. He knows exactly where we're going." She frowns. "What do you mean?" Matteo stares ahead, eyes hollow. "Because he's not working alone anymore." The words slice colder than the sea wind. Hours later, the horizon bleeds orange with dawn. They reach the edge of Castelmare's waters, an inlet known only to smugglers and ghosts. An old villa waits beyond the cliffs, its windows dark, its name long forgotten. Ilaria stumbles inside, exhausted. The babies sleep fitfully, their cries blending with the sea's slow heartbeat. She doesn't notice the photographs still hanging in the hall, black and white portraits of men with hard eyes and tailored suits. Every one of them bears the Romano crest. "This was one of his safe houses," Matteo says quietly. She freezes. "Salvatore's?" He shakes his head. "His father's." She sets the babies down, heart pounding. "Then why are we here?" "Because it's the last place Cassian would think to look." But even Matteo doesn't sound convinced. He moves to the window, scanning the road. "We need to contact Salvatore. He'll be looking for us." Ilaria turns sharply. "You think he survived?" Matteo's voice hardens. "He doesn't die easy." She looks down at the children. 3 small chests rise and fall, unaware they're born into a legacy of fire and ruin. She whispers, "He'll come for them." Matteo nods, but his eyes darken. He'll come for all of us. The question is, who's he coming back as? Night falls again. The sea turns black, and in the distance, a convoy of cars snakes down the cliff road, sleek, armored, silent. The Romano insignia glints under the headlights. Ilaria's heart stops. She rushes to the window. "He's here." Matteo grabs his rifle. "Stay back." The first car stops outside the gates. The door opens. Salvatore steps out, dressed in black, unarmed, face like carved stone. Ilaria nearly collapses from relief, but Matteo doesn't lower his weapon. "Something's wrong," he mutters. She frowns. "It's him. Look closer." Salvatore moves differently, too slow, too deliberate, and when he lifts his gaze toward the villa, his eyes gleam with something cold. Behind him, other cars open. Men in suits file out, not his men, his father's. Don Pietro Romano steps from the final car, cane tapping the ground, face serene in the moonlight. He looks at the house like a man returning to his throne. Matteo whispers, "God help us." Salvatore walks forward, crossing the threshold of the villa. His voice carries through the halls, deep and composed. "Lower your guns. There's no need for this." Matteo doesn't move. Ilaria steps forward instead, trembling. "Salvatore!" He meets her eyes, and for an instant there's recognition. Then something colder replaces it. His father enters behind him, cane striking marble, each step a judgment. "I raised a king," Pietro says softly, "and he became a martyr. Now he understands purpose." Ilaria's breath catches. "What did you do to him?" Pietro smiles. What any father would. I reminded him where loyalty begins. Salvatore's face doesn't move. He speaks like a man reading from someone else's mouth. Cassian is dead. His men are mine now. The city bends again to the Romano name. Matteo lowers his weapon slightly. That's not victory. That's surrender. Salvatore's gaze flicks to him, an executioner's stare. Be careful how you define surrender, Matteo. Sometimes it's the only way to win. The tension in the room hums like live wire. Ilaria steps closer, tears burning her eyes. Salvatore, listen to me. This isn't you. His hand lifts, a silent warning. Enough. Pietro looks pleased. See, my dear, the boy finally learned restraint. Matteo grips his gun again. No, he learned obedience. In one sharp movement, Matteo fires, missing Pietro by inches. Chaos erupts. Men flood the hallway. Gunfire tears through the villa's silence. Ilaria dives for the babies, shielding them as bullets shatter the chandeliers. Salvatore moves faster than she can track, disarming one attacker, breaking another's neck. It's brutal, efficient, merciless. He's the man he was always afraid to become. When the smoke clears, only 3 stand: Salvatore, Matteo, Ilaria. Pietro is gone, escaped. Salvatore wipes blood from his cheek. He looks at Ilaria, expression unreadable. You shouldn't have stayed, Matteo glares. Don't do this, you're not him. But Salvatore doesn't answer. He turns toward the door, toward the sea, where a black boat waits under the moonlight. Ilaria reaches for him. If you go to him again, you'll never come back. He pauses. His voice is a whisper swallowed by the tide. He's the only one who can end this. He started it. Matteo steps in front of him, and you'll die trying to finish it. Salvatore smirks, though there's no humor left in him. Then I'll die my father's son. He walks into the night. The sea devours the sound of his footsteps. Ilaria collapses to the floor, shaking, clutching the babies. Matteo kneels beside her, out of breath, bleeding from his shoulder. He looks toward the open door where Salvatore disappeared. Where's he going? She asks. Matteo's voice is barely a whisper. To burn the kingdom that raised him. She presses her forehead to her knees. Then it's already over. Matteo looks out at the black horizon. Not yet. He pulls something from his coat pocket, a small recording device. He presses play. Pietro's voice crackles through the static. You think this ends with Salvatore? No, my dear Matteo. It begins with the children. The blood drains from Matteo's face. He looks at Ilaria, horror dawning. He's not after Salvatore, he says slowly. He's after the heirs. Ilaria's eyes widen. The babies? Matteo nods, trembling. He wants to rebuild the dynasty from their blood. A sudden crash splits the silence. The back window shatters. A gloved hand reaches in, pulling one of the bassinets toward the open air. Ilaria screams, lunging forward. Matteo fires. The bullet hits glass, not flesh. Outside, tires screech. A car speeds away into the dark. One cradle is gone. Smoke from the burning docks rolls across the villa, and on the wind, faint but clear, comes a voice from the sea. Don Pietro's voice. You can keep 2. The 3rd belongs to me. Cut to black. The night tasted like iron and guilt. Castelmare was silent, as if the city itself held its breath, waiting for judgment. The storm had passed, but the air still trembled, thick with gunpowder, ghosts, and secrets no one wanted to say aloud. Salvatore sat at the edge of the villa's terrace, the sea a black mirror below, the horizon pulsing faintly with the promise of dawn. Yet the only light that mattered came from the cigarette burning between his fingers, a small dying sun, trembling like the truth that refused to stay buried. Cassiovela's final words had carved themselves into his skull, syllables like barbed wire. Your father wrote this story. His father, Don Pietro Romano, the man who'd built empires from blood and called it legacy, the man who taught Salvatore that mercy was a weakness and love was a debt no one could afford to pay. Now every lesson felt like poison. He closed his eyes, and Cassio's last moments replayed. The smirk, the cough of blood, the whisper that broke him. He remembered the exact tone, the exact pause before Cassio spat the truth like a confession. He ordered it. Your father. Salvatore had felt the world tilt in that instant. Everything, the betrayals, Ilaria's vanishing, Matteo's deception, had been chess moves in a game his father had orchestrated long before he even understood the rules. A legacy of rot disguised as loyalty. Inside the villa, the lights were dimmed to gold. Ilaria sat by the window, the triplets asleep in their cradles beside her. Their soft breaths were the only sound grounding him to something human. She looked tired, but not fragile, never fragile. There was a steel in her quiet, a fire he had once mistaken for defiance, but now saw for what it was, survival. He stepped closer. His voice was hoarse. A rasp dragged through ash. He did it, all of it. She turned, her expression unreadable. Who? My father. The words cracked as they left him. He staged your death. He made you vanish. Said it was to protect the family name, but it wasn't protection. It was purification. She froze. The moonlight painted her face silver and sorrowful. He wanted me gone. He wanted me unchanged, Salvatore muttered. Wanted his heir to remain cold, uncompromising. He thought love would rot the dynasty. He laughed, a hollow, broken thing. He was right. Silence stretched. Only the waves dared to speak. Ilaria rose from her chair, the silk of her nightdress whispering across the marble. Don't you dare say that. I destroyed everything I touched. You begged me to walk away from the shipments, and You stayed, she finished for him, because you thought it made you strong. Salvatore met her gaze, eyes hollow, fevered. It made me his son. She stepped closer until they were a breath apart. Then stop being him. Her voice wasn't a plea. It was a command, soft, unyielding. It struck him harder than any bullet could. He wanted to speak, but his throat locked. Every word he'd swallowed for years, the apologies, the grief, the need, fought to surface all at once. He had never confessed anything in his life. Confession was weakness, but tonight, weakness was all that kept him alive. I was the reason you ran, he whispered finally. The reason they found you, I didn't know it, but I was. Everything I touched turned into a weapon, even you. Ilaria's eyes shimmered, but she didn't look away. You're not a weapon, Salvatore. You're the war. He shook his head, tears cutting silent grooves down his face. Cassio told me the truth before he died. My father gave the order. He wanted to cleanse the family bloodline. Said you'd make me soft. Her lips trembled, but her tone stayed steady. And did I? He blinked. What? Did I make you soft? She asked. Or did I make you see? He had no answer. The silence that followed was confession enough. The night deepened. Somewhere, an owl cried. The triplets shifted in their sleep, one letting out a soft whimper that sliced through the tension like a heartbeat, reminding the room it still existed. Salvatore walked toward the window, staring out at the restless sea. I used to think power meant control. That fear could keep a man safe. But I see now, it's a cage. My father built it, and I lived inside it like a trained dog. Ilaria's reflection joined his in the glass. Then burn the cage. He turned. You think it's that simple? I think you owe it to those children to try. He looked at the cradles, at 3 small bodies wrapped in white, fragile proof of life, his blood, but not his father's curse, at least not yet. I don't know how to be anything else, he said. Then learn, she whispered. Her words cut through him with terrifying clarity. He took her hand, rough palms against her delicate fingers. "I don't deserve forgiveness." "You're not asking for it," she said softly. "You're asking for redemption. That's different." He wanted to believe her. For the first time in years, he wanted to believe in something other than vengeance. But the past was not done with him. As they stood there, the clock struck 3, a quiet chime that echoed like a funeral bell. Salvatore spoke first. His voice was low, shaking, honest. "I'm my father's monster." Ilaria cupped his face, forcing him to look at her. "Then be the man he feared you'd become." Her words were fire in the veins of the night, the kind of sentence that could rebuild or destroy a man. For a heartbeat, everything was still. The waves calmed, the air held its breath. Even the ghosts of Castelmare seemed to pause and listen. Then, movement. A shadow flickered behind the curtains. Salvatore's instincts kicked in, the muscle memory of a killer never truly slept. His hand went to the holster at his hip, though he hadn't worn a weapon in days. The silhouette was unmistakable. Broad shoulders, deliberate posture, an elegance forged from authority and menace. It couldn't be. He stepped forward, heart hammering in his throat. Ilaria's fingers tightened around his wrist, her eyes wide with something beyond fear. The curtain swayed once, then stilled, and from the darkness beyond it came the faint scrape of a cane against marble. That sound. He knew that sound. Salvatore froze. His breath hitched, his pulse fractured. Ilaria whispered, "Who's there?" A voice, familiar, smooth, cruelly composed, slid through the air like a blade through silk. "I warned you once, figlio mio," the voice said, calm as confession. "Love ruins dynasties." The curtain parted, and there he was, Don Pietro Romano, alive, unaged, and smiling. Salvatore's grip on Ilaria's hand tightens as his father steps into the light and says, "Let's see if blood truly remembers where it belongs." The night cracked open with silence, too heavy, too deliberate, the kind of silence that comes only before something sacred or catastrophic. Salvatore stared at the man who should have been buried years ago. Don Pietro Romano stood in the threshold like time itself had surrendered to his will. His cane struck the marble once, a dull thud that reverberated through the room like a verdict. His hair, silver now, caught the moonlight in sharp threads. His eyes, those same ruthless eyes that had once taught Salvatore to command and destroy, were calm, almost gentle, and that gentleness terrified him more than any gun ever had. Ilaria stepped instinctively in front of the triplets, her body a shield made of pure instinct. Don Pietro's gaze slid over her, slow, surgical, as though appraising something he'd created once and then discarded. "So," the old man said, voice smooth as aged bourbon, "you built a kingdom out of my ashes, and this is what you did with it." His cane pointed faintly toward the cradles. "You bred sentiment." Salvatore's throat constricted. "You tried to erase her." "I tried to save you," Don Pietro corrected. "You were losing your edge. You were letting mercy bleed into the empire. Do you think this city fears love, Salvatore? No, it fears legacy, the wrong kind of legacy." "You made me into something you could control," Salvatore said quietly, "a weapon shaped like a sun." Don Pietro smiled, thin and chilling. "And you were perfect, until you weren't." The words slid between them like steel. Ilaria's voice cut through, soft but sharp. "You destroyed your own bloodline to keep power. That's not legacy, it's extinction." The old man's smile deepened, spoken like a woman who never understood the cost of a throne. The storm that had once lived in Salvatore began to stir again. He'd spent years killing in his father's name, building an empire that now felt like a mausoleum of his own making. But in this moment, standing between Ilaria and Don Pietro, he finally saw the truth. His father wasn't a man. He was a myth, stitched together by fear and obedience, and myths only die when you stop believing in them. "Leave," Salvatore said. "Walk out that door and I'll let you keep your name." Don Pietro's laugh was a relic, sharp and elegant. "You think you can unmake me? You're standing in my house, breathing my air. You are me." Salvatore took a step closer. "No, father. I was you." The air in the room turned to glass, fragile, reflective, dangerous. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then Don Pietro shifted his weight, his hand tightening on the cane. The click of its hidden mechanism was barely audible, but Salvatore heard it, the soft metallic whisper of a blade concealed within. He didn't hesitate. Years of instinct took over. He lunged, grabbing the old man's wrist before the blade could clear its sheath. The cane hit the floor, the sound ringing like a gunshot. "Still fast," Don Pietro hissed, his voice cracking with pride and fury, but not fast enough. The struggle was brutal but brief. Pietro might have been old, but madness lends strength where age steals it. Their grips tangled. Their breaths came hard and ragged, and for one suspended moment Salvatore saw flashes of memory, his father's hand teaching him to shoot, to strike, to rule. Now that same hand trembled in his grasp, shaking not from weakness but from the shock of being resisted. Ilaria moved, her cry slicing through the chaos. "Salvatore!" Her voice broke something open in him. The rage that had fueled him all his life suddenly inverted. It became purpose. He twisted his father's wrist sharply, disarming him, sending the cane skittering across the floor. It clattered to a stop beside the cradle. The babies stirred, but didn't cry. The silence that followed was brutal. Don Pietro panted, eyes burning. "You'd strike your own blood?" Salvatore's voice was low, steady, final. "I already did the day I became you." He released him. The old man stumbled back, catching himself on the edge of the desk. The lamplight painted him in pale gold, still regal, still venomous, but diminished now. His empire, his power, his legend, crumbling in front of the very legacy he tried to erase. "You think this ends with me?" Don Pietro rasped. "You think peace can live where we built our bones? Castelmare eats its saints and spits out devils. You can't change that." Salvatore stepped forward, inches from him. "Then let it eat me." Their eyes locked. Father and son, God and creation. For the first time in years, Don Pietro looked uncertain. His lips parted as if to curse him, but no words came. Just a soft exhale, half disbelief, half surrender. And then he smiled, a small, knowing smile that chilled the blood. "You still don't see it," he murmured. "There's someone else. Someone who's been waiting for the throne to fall." Salvatore frowned. "Who?" Pietro's hand trembled as he pointed toward the door. "The one who never left your side." Salvatore's pulse quickened. "Matteo?" But when he turned, the doorway was empty. Only the whisper of night breeze and the faint swing of a half-open door. Ilaria's breath caught. "He's gone." Pietro laughed, weak, rasping, triumphant. "You think betrayal dies? It breeds, boy. It's what we're made of." The sound of engines cut through the night, several approaching fast. Headlights slashed across the window panes, white and violent. The sea below reflected their glare like lightning. Matteo's voice crackled through the intercom, distorted by static. "Sal, we need to talk. Don't make me come in." Salvatore's hand went instinctively to his sidearm. Ilaria whispered, "No more blood." He hesitated, just long enough to make a choice that could either save or damn them all. The triplets began to stir as if feeling the storm rising again. He kissed Ilaria's forehead once, softly. "Lock the door. Don't open it unless it's me." Then he turned toward the entrance, where the world outside waited with teeth. Don Pietro's laughter followed him, faint and echoing. "You'll never escape the name, figlio mio. The city doesn't forgive Romani. It remembers them." Salvatore stopped at the threshold, back rigid, heart steady. He didn't look back. Outside, shadows moved between the headlights, dozens of men, some his, some not. Matteo stood in front, gun in one hand, expression carved from regret. "Sal," he said quietly, almost pleading. "It wasn't supposed to be like this." Salvatore's voice was cold, stripped of everything but resolve. "It never is." They faced each other, brothers bound by loyalty and undone by truth. The first drop of rain struck the ground, echoing like a clock starting again. Inside, Ilaria stood by the window, clutching one of the babies, her reflection caught between firelight and lightning. Don Pietro sat slumped in his chair, smiling faintly at the storm outside. And in the distance, Castelmaire's church bells began to ring, slow, relentless, merciless. As the bells toll 3 times, a single gunshot cracks the night open, and the screen fades to black.